Thank you very much, Peter. I have to say that we all really appreciate your enthusiasm and dedication as a chair of the Governing Council as well. It's always nice to welcome you in Eschborn and that you join our brainstorming meetings. We really appreciate it. Now, we're very happy that so many of you, as I said before, came from so far away. So I think it's, because it's supposed to be a very interactive event, I think it's good for everyone to know a bit who's in the room. So if all of the supervisors maybe could just raise their hands. Everyone who's an insurance supervisor, please raise your hand. Great. Perfect. And then donors and development partners. Please raise your hands. And the insurance industry. They're holding up the fort here. Fantastic. Now, from a geographical perspective, who's from sub-Saharan Africa? Great. Latin America? No, they're all in one corner here. Asia. Fantastic. Middle East and North Africa. Also one person holding up the fort. Very good. Appreciate it. Central and Eastern Europe. Okay. Somehow you need to move around more. You're all in those groups. So we need to get people, at least tomorrow after the party. I'm sure that people will mingle more. Oh yes, North America, Western Europe, Australia. Anyone and Canada? Well, you're but that's North America, right? Also, could I ask the A2II team to raise your hands? So, for everyone, please have a good look, because if you need anything over the next 2 days, these are the people and myself to go to. We're always happy to help. Now, we have two very distinguished keynote speakers this morning. Firstly, I'd like to invite Jonathan Dixon. You have Jonathan's bio in your packs, and I think for many of you, he doesn't need an introduction, and you've also seen him on the video just now. Jonathan is Secretary General of the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, and he was previously head of insurance at the South African Financial Services Board. During that time, he was also the inaugural chair of the A2II. That's why he's slightly biased, maybe. And that's a position that he held for 8 years, until he moved to Basel to take up his position at the IAIS. Jonathan's leadership and guidance has really been fundamental to making the A2II what it is today. And we're very happy that we continue to have these strong ties with you in your new position. Jonathan, you have the floor.
So I really am very, very happy to be here for this celebration today. 10 years of A2II, it is just fantastic. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And as you have mentioned, I share these celebrations with a little bit of two hats on. As you said, currently as the Secretary General of the IAIS. You would think after 2 years I would get this acronym down, but Peter knows my experience. And secondly, as said, as the first chair of the Access to Insurance Initiative, and with both of these hats on, I truly celebrate this incredible partnership. And also the past, current, and future successes of this initiative. It really is fantastic. And talking of successes, before going any further, I would like to give a quick shout out and thank you to Hannah and her entire team at the A2II Secretariat for your tireless dedication, your hard work, your positive can-do attitude, I was on the A2I Governing Council for a while, and we knew every meeting it was like, well, this is a very ambitious work program, and the Secretariat was, well, we want to do it, we can do it, and they did do it. So congratulations. So maybe a few words on financial inclusion and insurance. It's been mentioned already, and as we know, in many parts of the world, individuals, households, and businesses live without the security that's provided by insurance. We also know that disaster and risk make no distinction between rich and poor, but the consequences are disproportionately affect the poor. This is the dilemma we face, and we know that insurance is a key tool for managing this risk and for ensuring efforts to raise people out of poverty are sustainable. And it's for these reasons that access to insurance must be and has become a key part of a coordinated financial inclusion strategy. And I'm very happy to be able to stand here this morning and make a statement like that without fear of contradiction, because many of you in this room know that it wasn't that long ago that the importance of insurance in a coordinated financial inclusion strategy was not as well recognized as it is today. A little bit about the IAIS's journey on financial inclusion. Well, it's been mentioned already that the IAIS was a pioneer. It's been a long journey, and financial inclusion has been a significant focus of the IAIS for more than 10 years now. In fact, even before the A2I was established, and this was a driving force behind the establishment of this partnership. And I would perhaps like just to mention and recognize some of the pioneers back from those days. You saw them on the video, but really, if I look back on the 10 years, the role of Arup Chatterjee, Krake Thorburn, Yoshi Kawai, Tim Lehman, Birgitta Klein, of course, Henny Bester, Alcha de Roos. I hope I haven't left out any names, but you know what you achieved in establishing the A2II, and it's so fantastic that so many of you are here to celebrate 10 years on. The IAIS has travelled its own journey as well with respect to financial inclusion and supervision. Back then, 10 years ago, the IAIS's perspective on financial inclusion started with the question of whether the IAIS, as a standard-setting body for supervision, should have a role in supporting financial inclusion. 10 years later, the conclusion of these debates is clear to all of us in this room, but let me offer a few personal perspectives. Lesson number 1, financial inclusion is not a competing objective to traditional supervisory objectives of financial stability and policyholder protection. We do not need to talk about trade-offs. In fact, the objectives are complementary. In developing jurisdictions in particular, if inclusive and sustainable growth is not achieved, then ultimately this threatens not only the social fabric, but it also undermines financial stability and policyholder protection. From my own experience as the former insurance supervisor in South Africa, a country of stark haves and have-nots, this insight was particularly acute and was a key driver of not only the national financial sector policy, but also was a driver of making financial inclusion an explicit objective in the mandate of insurance supervisors in the country. And as was said at that time, for me it's not clear that the job of policyholder protection is truly achieved if there remain millions of potential policyholders who have no protection at all. Creating an enabling supervisory framework to address the protection gap is an imperative, not a debate. But back to the IAIS, and having quickly accepted that we did indeed have an important role as insurance supervisors in supporting financial inclusion, we then moved on to the question of how the IAIS can advance financial inclusion through its activities, underpinned by the principle of a balanced approach to the supervisory mandate, maintaining the universal applicability of our common standards, but at the same time, applying these standards in a proportionate and appropriate way. And the past decade has really seen a journey in this regard for the IAIS and for the A2II, from generating knowledge about the importance of financial inclusion and raising awareness among supervisors and policymakers, to developing guidance on the proportionate application of our standards, to producing case studies on how to practically apply these lessons, to now actively supporting our member supervisors to implement a proportionate approach on the ground. And this will continue to be the focus, I know. Firstly, about targeted implementation support and capacity building on the ground, and secondly, advocacy among policyholders on the role of insurance in supporting economic development and supporting broader policy objectives such as poverty reduction and disaster resilience to help further support supervisors' efforts in this regard. But let's reflect on how far we have come. As Peter said, in October 2009, in Rio, the IAIS partnered with development agencies to establish the A2II. 10 years on, the A2II is now well and truly the IAIS's implementation arm on financial inclusion and supervisory capacity building. The ambitious work program, the track record of achievements, and this proven success would not have been possible without the support of a large network of like-minded individuals and organizations, as well as the generous financial support from the government of the Netherlands, DGIS, and the government of Germany from BMZ, as well as the ongoing organizational support from GIZ and the support of new partners like the International Actuarial Association. Many of them in this room I've mentioned already as the founding fathers and founding mothers of the A2II, but the heavy work has continued, and I'd like to mention a few of those as well, who we're very happy to see in this room. Of course, Hannah and her team, but before them, Marika Coman-Brady, former head of the Secretariat, Peter Braumüller, of course, Peter van den Broeke from the IAIS, Connor Donaldson, and others as well from the Secretariat. For me, this is a model of partnership. A model of partnership with the development world that other standard setters could learn from and could consider emulating. We benefit from our partners' broader development perspective and key insights into the sometimes complex maze of development agencies and donor funding. We provide the convening power of the global insurance supervisory community. The A2I's activities are grounded in the work of the IAIS and our standards. We work together on our roadmap, our plans. Through the A2II, we have been able to amplify our limited resources to develop supervisory capacity in a way that is clearly aligned with our global standards. And the A2II roadmap for the coming years continues down this successful pathway, supporting regional implementation strategies that are built bottom-up by our members and providing a platform for peer-to-peer learning between insurance supervisors and targeted capacity-building initiatives. Within this context, it's also important to recognize that the environment around us is changing rapidly. Quite appropriately, a greater and greater focus of the IAIS A2II partnership is in the role of digital technology in supporting financial inclusion. In particular, digital platforms are challenging the traditional silos of financial services, and it is imperative that we work collaboratively as standard-setting bodies in addressing these challenges and embracing the opportunities of digital financial inclusion. That's why the IAIS's new 5-year strategic plan, which we formally adopted just in June this year, commits to continue, if not strengthen, our efforts in the area of financial inclusion, particularly digital financial inclusion, through supporting supervisors to enhance their supervisory practices and to observe our standards in a proportionate manner. I assure you, and I know, have the assurance of our current IAIS ExCo Chair, Vicky Supporter, that even having achieved so much in the past 10 years, our commitment to the inclusion agenda and to the A2II is stronger than ever, and we look forward to accelerating our progress in this new digital world. In closing, as the IAIS, we are grateful for all the support the initiative has received from so many of you in this room, and we are committed to expanding its reach and to advancing our shared objective in financial inclusion. On behalf of the global supervisory community, we commend you, the A2II, on your 10-year anniversary and look forward to the next decade of solid partnerships and success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. It's always nice to hear that the IAIS appreciates the collaboration as much as we do. So that's very good. I would now like to invite Michael Krake to the stage. Michael is Deputy Director General at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, or BMZ for short. That's easier to say. He leads the Directorate Private Sector, Trade, Employment, and Digital Technologies. And as we've heard already, BMZ has been absolutely fundamental in getting the A2II to where we are now and to this 10-year anniversary event. BMZ is not only a founding partner of the A2II, but together with DGIS, BMZ continues to be our main funder, which actually allows us to do all of the activities that have been mentioned so far. You also provide guidance to us and to our work in the role of the BMZ on the Governing Council as well as the Executive Committee. And we're hosted by GIZ on behalf of BMZ, so big thanks for that, and you have the floor.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I think this is a good way to start the week. The weather is nice, we have an international crowd here, a relevant topic. We know that not all the potential of this topic is fully leveraged so far. The A2II is now a 10-year-old kid. 10 years, it's not that much. I encourage you to keep a little bit of the spirit of something what is still a relatively new initiative. Not a completely new kid on the block, but it's still something new. And when you're a young institution or entity, you challenge things, you don't know all the buts and ifs so much, and you are often the driving force to really push a topic. But you're not only young and naive, no. I see here there's a lot of experience in this room, combined professional experience that goes well beyond 100 years. So it's not only a kid, but it's also a very experienced body that we have here. And if you can manage to combine these two capabilities, I think there's a lot of potential in something like A2II, so that this very complex abbreviation and IAIS, sometimes they become more as familiar as R2D2 to kids today. So that should be the ambition that you have. You have a strong ambition. It's set here, promoting access to responsible, inclusive insurance for all. So responsible and inclusive, these are big words, and maybe some would say buzzwords in development cooperation. And I'd like to delve with you into the meaning of these two words at the beginning. And I start with the easier one. Inclusive, inclusive, you take the broadest definition possible, and then you see how far you get along the way to cover as much as possible. And but what we really mean with inclusive insurance is a strong means to empower the vulnerable. Inclusive insurance allows low-income people, small and medium-sized enterprises, governments to really strengthen their resilience against risks and shocks. So insurance can cover financial losses and helps to recover faster after an economic shock. So for example, in Zambia, BMZ has supported a private sector insurance approach that covers income losses for smallholder farmers if they lose their harvest through drought or excessive rainfalls, floods. Insurance can foster economic activity. It allows business owners to run their companies and invest in higher return activities without having to worry all the time about unexpected events that can slow them down or bring them to a complete halt. To foster market development for inclusive insurance, so German Development Corporation together with ILO, Impact Insurance Facility, have developed tailor-made SME insurance trainings for private sector in Nigeria and Tanzania. So I will sometimes come with examples from Zambia, Nigeria, Tanzania, so that we really get a picture in our head what it actually means to promote insurances and inclusiveness. Whether it is extreme weather events such as floods, heavy rainfalls, or more day-to-day events such as ill health, accidents, fires, or theft that can cause business interruption, insurance provides the confidence that assets are covered from loss and other liabilities. Insurance provides you confidence to do your business and to go on, even if there are risks in this world. So it's really a strong driver to foster economic activity. So promoting access to insurance for vulnerable and underserved groups of people, so poor, young, often women, people living in rural areas, is a vital part of German development cooperation to promote financial inclusion in general. It is thus a key component to supporting sustainable economic development, poverty alleviation, reducing inequalities, rural development, and food security and employment promotion. So when we talk about insurances, it's always a mean to achieve a development objective, really big, ambitious things that we want to move forward. So insurances can be a key component to actually achieve these development objectives. And this is why BMZ and German Development Corporation is so keen on using this component, insurance. Let me illustrate that with one example. Just imagine, that should be enough on, I know we shouldn't be too long. That should be enough on inclusiveness. Let me go to being responsible. That is the more tricky part, I would say, of the mission that you have here. What is responsible, what is irresponsible, and where do you draw the lines between that? Sometimes you simply don't know in an unsecure world. So to achieve these goals, inclusive insurances need to be designed responsible. This means, first of all, that insurance companies have to be prepared to pay the claims in case the insured event occurs. This means as well that the insurance premium needs to be reasonable and affordable. But in the area of digitalization, this means much more. So the business case needs to be a relevant one, and you need to have trust in the insurer that he can actually pay the fee, and that and for those who get insured, that they are not charged for too much. That is a challenge, and to find the right balance on this is a challenge as well. But I would say in times of digitization, there are even bigger challenges ahead for you. One example is an insurance company retrieving, collecting, and processing your personal data, e.g. from your loyalty card or your mobile phone, your recent grocery shopping, or your health app. The use of data holds enormous potential. It may be very beneficial if you went for a run this morning, did your meditation, had a healthy breakfast. You will be probably rewarded by benefit schemes from your health insurance one day. But what does this actually mean? We see inclusive insurance as a strong means to empower the vulnerable, and inclusive insurance allows us, it means that there's also big risk in using big data. So it can be beneficial to use this data, but it can also be a risk. The use of big data also increases the risk for the exploitation, for illegal reasons or unethical means, which manifests in risk to consumers. Or as a negative example, innovation can also make consumers more vulnerable. Then digital technology would lead to financial exclusion rather to financial inclusion. So being responsible and inclusive at the same time can be a challenge, and especially in times of digitalization, we strive for including with new technologies, but it can also have the effect of excluding those we want to include. So to keep pace with these rapid challenges in the industry is a challenge for you as supervisors here in the room. It requires joint efforts of experts from all fields to coordinate effectively and build awareness among both providers and consumers. And the A2II is now an important player in this field, and that's the good news. So BMZ's engagement with A2II was already mentioned. We are one of the founding members. I wouldn't say there was a founding father. I think it was Susanne Dorasil, my colleague, who was one of the founding mothers, and we handed this now over to Natasha, who is leading our work on this here in the private sector division at BMZ. So we're really glad to be there from the very beginning. During the last 10 years, BMZ has continued to be a strong supporter of the Access to Insurance initiative. We contribute to the A2I's core together with our partners from the Netherlands, and we will continue to do so. We have GIZ hosting the secretariat. So the involvement of A2II since 2009 has been already described here over the past decade. The A2II has evolved from an organization largely focused on knowledge creation and around microinsurance regulation to the implementation arm of the IAIS on financial inclusion. So this relationship between the IAIS and the A2II is unique. No other standard-setting body has gone so far as the IAIS to promoting financial inclusion in its area of focus. So, Jonathan, once again, thank you for your leadership on this and all those who are involved in this. So in 2009, when we jointly founded the A2II, the world was just emerging from a severe global financial crisis, a crisis largely triggered by the unscrupulous behavior of financial institutions towards those that had limited access to financial services. Together with the other founding partners of A2II, we realized that promoting responsible financial inclusion, access to a range of good quality financial services, including insurance to those that needed it, would actually reduce the risk of a future financial crisis rather than to increase this. And I think this is an argument that we should still stress from time to time. Well, the next financial crisis might be around the corner, it might be decades away, we never know for sure, but that tools like the A2II and IAIS help us to make a more stable financial world. I think that's a strong argument. It's also a politically compelling argument. The A2II was set up in 2009 with this strong mission, and I would like to highlight two particular achievements in the past 10 years that, from our experience, stand out. First, the A2II has been instrumental in building up a knowledge hub for insurance supervisors and regulators. On the A2II website, you can find a wide offering of toolkits, research papers, and capacity building initiatives. Feedback from US supervisors shows these materials have been helpful in designing regulatory approaches to foster access to insurance, and as a result of the support provided by the A2II, the new approaches have been developed to better support inclusive insurance markets. So that's one big achievement over the last 10 years. Second, the A2II has brought together many supervisors and regulators, as we see today, from all over the world in pursuit of one common goal: to advance access to responsible insurance for the underserved and excluded. So there have been webinars, bi-monthly consultations from covering from over 120 countries via 35 consultation calls. I mean, these are impressive numbers. You see there's really action on the ground and something is happening from from year to year with this initiative, and that's the biggest achievement. It's not always like this if we set up new initiatives, and you can really be proud in what you've achieved on this. It is safe to say that the A2II's work has not only shaped the discourse on insurance regulations, making inclusive insurance an important goal for supervisory authorities, but also given insurance supervisors a voice. In its capacity as implementation partner of the IAIS, the A2II is well positioned to identify and respond to supervisors' needs on emerging issues. And I would like to touch on two of these emerging issues. One, I think, is the topic of the next 2 days here as well, climate change, and the second one, very shortly, digitization. So in Germany, the impact of climate-related negative events are broadly discussed, and we feel that now longer, hotter summers, more floods, 10 billion worth of damage in several parts of our country. It's really a topic that moves people here in Germany now. But what is true for Germany is an even more imminent threat for many developing countries. The damage that extreme weather events cause is growing, and people and assets continue to concentrate in vulnerable locations. So 90% of those who have been killed by disasters since the 1990s live in either Africa or Asia, while the direct economic losses from disasters are 14 times higher in low-income countries than high-income countries. So this is really a big topic, and I think you're putting the spot on something here during these days as well. So the German government sees a great potential of insurance in the area of climate change and disaster risk. During the German G7 presidency in 2015, we launched the G7 Climate Risk Insurance Initiative with the goal to insure an additional 400 million people, poor and vulnerable people, in developing countries by 2020. And we're actually well on track to achieve this goal. During the 2017 UN Climate Conference in Bonn, the G7 initiative was merged into the Insure Resilience Global Partnership. So it's also a good development that things from these small clubs like the G7 really get a broader impact and others get on board. The partnership aims to strengthen the resilience of developing countries and to protect the lives and livelihoods of poor and vulnerable people from the impacts of disaster. So one of our strongest instruments to do so is through insurance solutions. And actually, I think this resilience in Germany really helped us to boost the relevance of insurances in development cooperation in general, and was a big boost for the topic here, because we could really show together with others that insurances really have impact and change something. So these instruments need to be embedded in well-functioning regulatory regimes. Keeping up with these developments is difficult for many insurance supervisors. We therefore support that the A2II has chosen climate and disaster risk as the annual theme for this year. Supervisory capacity building and stakeholder dialogue events have been organized in Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Latin America. So this is good news, but we urge you as well, don't leave it as a one-year topic. This is a big thing, and you will have to continue this over the years and probably decades. Same with digitization, the second emerging issue that you will work more on, opportunities and risks of digitalization. In the last decade, digitization has been transforming all aspects of our lives in both industrialized and developed countries, and this is especially true for the financial sector. For example, mobile phones. We know that the potential of mobile phones now as small computers that you have in your pocket have changed our daily lives, not only in developed countries, but also in developing countries. And we see kind of reverse innovation that from developing countries, we learn a lot on how to use these mobile phones here in developing countries. Often the smartest applications come from young nations in Africa and now get back to Europe, for example, and this is also a very encouraging development. So, especially in emerging and developing countries, digitalization holds the promise to decrease poverty and the divide between the rich and the poor. One of the most prominent examples is mobile payment apps, and that's really one example of financial inclusion that I would say many politicians also in Germany know about. M-Pesa is a word that people really refer to, the mobile payment system in Kenya, and this is a big achievement. It's an African achievement, and we can learn from that, and we should promote it. So the rapid digital transformation has also impacted insurance markets and thus the work of insurance supervisors. even though private sector players in the financial sector like fintechs and insurtechs and all this are the key drivers of digital innovation, we as policymakers and regulators must harness the potential of digital technologies. So there's a lot ahead for us. You know, innovations happen, and regulators need to make sure that they keep up with all the changes and find smart solutions and regulations for that. So this is a big challenge. Coming to an end, I'd like to encourage you that when you promote access to responsible and inclusive insurances for all, you should be very self-confident, not only as technical experts working on this, but also as advocates and ambassadors for the topic. And I think a good example is what we see in the field of health with immunization. Everybody agrees, every politician, that immunizing child with vaccines is a good investment. And there's a lot of money for that, and it's right to invest into this. But you know, with insurances, it's pretty much the same mechanism. If you insure people, it's like an immunization. It can be a lifelong immunization as long as you pay your fees, so that you can really protect them from risks. And I think there's a big potential in that. You might have a challenge because immunizations, you know, they create a picture of children, nurses, and doctors. When it comes to insurances, you get the picture of financial sector guys working on that, not nurses and doctors. There's a lot of trust in nurses and doctors, but not necessarily always in the financial sector guys. I may say so because I'm from the government, and government representatives are also not always trusted very well. But if you gain the trust of people that you do the right thing in the financial sector, in a wild financial sector world, I think there's a lot of potential that one day insurances are as popular in the development scene like nowadays immunization and vaccines, and this is what you should strive for. Good luck with that, and enjoy the day and have a great party tonight.